Hello and welcome to the Security MegaCast. This event is brought to you by Actual Tech Media, and I'm thankful to have sponsors on today's event from KnowBe4, SolarWinds, and Rapid7. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'm honored to be your moderator on today's event. We at Actual Tech Media created the MegaCast and EcoCast event series to help educate the world of IT professionals about the latest and greatest, most innovative enterprise technology available to you today to help you to do it all in one place, quickly and efficiently from your home or office, to help you learn as much as possible to get all your questions answered, and you'll have a chance to win some very valuable prizes as well. Now, before we get started, we have a little bit of housekeeping we need to cover. On today's event, we have prizes. We have Amazon gift cards and iPad Pros. I'll talk more about those in just a moment. We also have questions for you. We have some poll questions. I appreciate you responding to those polls. I'll be sharing the results of those with you. And we want your questions. Use that questions box there in the control panel in your console and ask as many questions as you'd like of our expert security presenters. We have some fantastic veteran security experts on today. I'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session with each of them after their presentation. So send in your best security questions as they're presenting, and I'll queue those up for them to answer during the Q&A. We also want this to be a social event, so we'll be tweeting about everything that goes on here over on Twitter with the hashtag Security MegaCast. I'll talk more about the hashtag and remind you of it in just a moment. But the cool thing is that you can tweet directly from your console. On the bottom there's a Twitter icon, and if you tweet using that icon, it will automatically append the Security MegaCast hashtag. And then finally, we have resources or handouts from each of our presenters today. If you click on the Handouts tab just to the right of the questions box on your console, you'll find handouts that are hand-selected from each of our presenters to give you more information. You can click on those and easily download those so that you can share them with your friends and family. Now, on today's event, you could win one of 5 new 11-inch iPad Pros in your choice of color. That's right, 5 iPad Pros. That's a lot of iPads to give out. And we also, to make it even better, we'll be giving out a $500 Amazon gift card after every presentation on today's event. So that's 3 $500 Amazon gift cards. To be eligible for the prize drawings, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media. Full prize terms and conditions can be found there in the Handouts tab. Scroll down where it says Prize Terms and Conditions, also on our website, events.actualtechmedia.com. Thanks to generous prize winners on past events, we have donated thousands of dollars to the charities you see here on the screen. If you are a prize winner and you'd like to donate your prize value to charity, we would love to help you do that. So if so, thank you in advance. Feel free to follow Actual Tech Media on the multiple social media where we can be found at YouTube, Facebook, and our 10 on Tech podcast. You can find links to those as well as our LinkedIn channel on the top right-hand side of your console. You'll see the little icons right there. So just click on those and follow us to keep up to date on the latest and greatest in enterprise tech. And speaking of LinkedIn, LinkedIn has become really the place for all things social and all things business. That's where business and social seem to meet lately, and we've been doing a ton more on LinkedIn lately. We are publishing a show out there called 360 in 180. We are publishing our latest content, so make sure that you follow Actual Tech Media and even me, David M. Davis, over on LinkedIn. We always love to chat with our followers. Now, before I do some poll questions with you and I introduce our first presenter, I first want to do some level setting with you when it comes to enterprise security. And what I'm going to talk about here is the 4 foundations of enterprise security. I actually started by talking about the mistakes that people make when it comes to security. But what I found in creating that presentation is that there was just so many opportunities to create a vulnerability or make a mistake when it comes to security. And then what I came back to was that everyone really needs to kind of review the foundations of security. And that's not because we don't know anything about security, but that's because security is such a complex topic, and there's such a wide breadth of security, and we all need to keep up to date and make sure that our companies are protected across all these different areas, the multiple layers of security. So what I'm going to do here is provide you a review of the 4 foundations of enterprise security. And while you're watching this, I hope that you're thinking about your own company and if your company is protected in all of these different areas. Because if you're not strong in all of these areas, or you're not practicing one of these types of security, it can create a huge hole for malicious attackers. So with that being said, I want to first talk about core security. And core security starts with physical security. So there on the right, you see the vault with the servers inside. That takes physical security to the extreme. But you'd be surprised at how many data centers don't even have locked doors or keycard access, or they have large windows to show off the servers, or the administrator's workstation is sitting there unlocked. I'm sure many of us can do better when it comes to physical security. And then there's human nature. Humans make mistakes. You'll hear from KnowBe4 today on how to create the human firewall. Our end users, our administrators, we all need to improve our security knowledge and become more security aware in everything that we do. Core security also includes authentication. Many of us need to step up to two-factor authentication. And I know that can be challenging with so many different applications, but strong authentication is a very important security factor because if someone can get in, they have access to do everything that we are authorized to do. And that brings me to the principle of least privilege. How many out there are logged in with a root account or an administrator equivalent account? We need to really lock down and ensure that our end users and us as administrators only have the privilege to do what we really need to do. And then finally, defense in depth. I think of defense in depth as an onion with the different layers of the onion. And an onion is much stronger than an egg. We don't want our security to be like an egg where we have a hard outer shell and a soft gooey center. We want our security to be more like an onion with many layers that are much harder to get through than the eggshell, for example. The next foundational level of enterprise security, and I love this graphic, by the way, with the toy soldiers, is network security. I bet there's many of us that need to do a better job of that. Once an attacker can attack one segment of the network, they shouldn't be able to attack the entire network. We need better edge security, firewalls, and that brings me to microsegmentation. That's something we've been talking a lot about lately at Actual Tech Media. Microsegmentation is really the next layer of network security that most companies out there need to implement. And then, of course, there's port-based and wireless security. And that brings me to actually another cool graphic that I love. The topic of endpoint security are kept up to date with patches, anti-malware protection, host-based intrusion detection, and ransomware detection. We really have to have a presumption of compromise, which is another way of saying zero trust for our endpoints. We can't assume that all endpoints are secure. We have to assume that all endpoints are compromised and only trust those endpoints when they can prove that they're not compromised. And you're going to see a really cool demo today from Rapid7, their Insight VM tool that allows you to collect, prioritize, and remediate. So make sure you watch out for that presentation. And then finally, the fourth and final layer of foundational enterprise security comes to processes, auditing, and compliance, specifically security information and event management, or SIEM as it's known. SolarWinds has an awesome security information and event management tool that you'll see today on the event, so make sure you watch out for that presentation. Also in Foundation 4 is encryption, data protection, vulnerability scanning, and compliance management. And I know that compliance is something that most of you out there have to deal with on a daily basis. With the topic of enterprise security being so complex and so layered, I know it can be really challenging to keep up to date and to ensure that our security is strong across all these different areas. Thankfully, I think you'll see some great solutions for those security challenges on today's event from KnowBe4, SolarWinds, and Rapid7. And with that, let's kick off today's Security MegaCast. All right, before I introduce our first presenter, we've got 3 quick poll questions for you out there in the audience. I want to call your attention to the slides window there. And a quick question, hopefully should be a quick question. What's your industry vertical? The only thing you need to know about this question is you will likely need to scroll down on the right-hand side of the slides window because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of different verticals. I'll share the results of this poll question with you, and you can see how you stack up with your peers on today's Security MegaCast. This is a good opportunity. Actually, you can maximize that slides window, or at least take your mouse and take it to the corner of the slides window and click and drag it out, just like a window on your Mac or Windows operating system, and make it larger so you can see today's presentations. There might be some architectural diagrams. I know there's going to be a ton of demo on today's event. I'm really excited about that. So hopefully you've answered that poll question. Let me share the results with you. All right, looks like 20% technology, 14% finance and banking, 12% healthcare, a good representation of finance and banking, healthcare, 5% telecom, 6% state, federal government, and 8% manufacturing. A good representation across the board here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us from many different verticals, many different industries. Next question is, how many people work at your company? This is the second question of 3. I promise not to ask you more than 3 questions before we get started here. So this question is just quick and easy. How many people work at your company? I'll share the results with you. You can see how you stack up with everyone else on the event today. All right, let me share the results with you on this one. And take a look at that. 21% say they are from 10,000 plus companies. Wow, some big companies on the event today. 20% from 100 to 500, good mid-sized representation as well. And then all the way down to small companies, 12%, 1 to 25 employees. So thank you, everyone who voted on that poll. And then finally, last question here. That is, what's your time frame for updating your existing or selecting a new security or security solutions at your company? If you're on the event today, it's most likely because you're interested in improving the security at your company. So I'm curious to find out how many of you out there are currently looking for solutions, and if you are, what's your time frame for updating those? I want to thank you, everyone, for commenting and saying good morning and hello from places like Texas and Kennedy Space Center and all the incredible countries around the world and states across the United States that everyone has joined from. So thank you so much for all those great comments. I'm trying to get to every one of them as quickly as I can. All right, thanks everyone who responded to that poll question. It's time to kick it off with our first presenter on today's Security MegaCast. I'm excited to introduce Mr. Greg Cross, Chief Product Officer at KnowBe4. Greg, are you there?
I am. Thank you for the introduction, David.
Thanks for being on the event today, Greg. Take it away.
All right, great. So, as you said, my name is Greg Cross. I am the Chief Product Officer here at KnowBe4. And let's talk a little bit about what KnowBe4 is and what my demo is going to be about here. So, first of all, a little bit about us. We're Tampa Bay based. We've been doing this for about the last 10 years. We're ex-antivirus security space software founded, and we saw some problems when we were doing that, and a lot of those problems revolved around the fact that the human element was being overlooked, and we built the platform that I'll be demonstrating today around that. And as you can see, we've amassed quite a lot of different customers from all different markets. And we service everywhere from 50,000 users to 500,000 user organizations. So I know this is an enterprise-based megacast, so I'll be focusing on larger, but rest assured there's something that works for all different sizes of organization. So real quick, what is it that we actually do? We talk about what we have as new school security awareness training. This is in contrast to the old-fashioned just throw something every year in front of a bunch of people. They might remember it through lunch, and that's it. New school security awareness training is the concept of doing it on a regular basis with encouragement and reinforcing messages so that you actually change the security culture. Got to remember the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Same thing, you can teach a user not to do anything stupid, but you can't force them not to click. So here are some numbers on that. This is our platform numbers. These are not marketing numbers that are made up. This is actually looking at organizations that are using our platform right now. We always recommend to start off with a baseline phishing security test to find out where you sit, and that comes in at 27%. So more than 1 in 4 people fail. We start the process of training those users, and you can see that just within 3 months you can cut that in half. And then, importantly, over the course of the following months throughout the year, it continues to go down, and you can get to a much more manageable risk level of somewhere between 2, 3. Some organizations get down into the 1% range. So how does that actually? How do we actually do that? So for that, I'm going to stop slides. I'm going to go over to sharing my screen, and I'm actually going to show the platform that is what we're actually offering. So what you should be seeing on your screen at this point is the actual screen of the console. It's all hosted in the cloud. There's no required on-premise software. And as the administrator, this is what you're going to see when you first log in. You're going to see the organization's risk score. The risk score is actually generated through one of our various AI platforms. It's looking at several different factors of your users' behaviors, their training, their breaches that they've been in, what role they have in the organization. It takes all of those things and rolls it up into a score that then is taken all the way to the organizational level, so you can see your organization's risk score as it improves over time. A little bit further down, we can see the details of just phishing, so you can see how your phishing tests are doing. You can compare yourself to the various other organizations, different industries, see how you compare to other people in similar spaces. A little further down, you'll see the results of the Phish Alert button. This is a component. This is included at all the different subscription levels. It's optional, but it's a button for your end users to click when they think that they see a phishing email. That button works with Office 365, Exchange. There's an Outlook installer. There's a G Suite version. There's even a Lotus version for the people that are still on that. And when they press the button, it reports it back to us if it was a simulation. If it's not a simulation, it forwards the email on to your security operations team. And there's another component that we have that'll help them on, but I won't talk about PhishER today. And then at the bottom, we see the details of the various training campaigns that are going on in the platform and how people are doing. So to get started, I always start over at one tool that we've made available for organizations, which is called ASAP, which is the Automated Security Awareness Program. It's a brief questionnaire that you'll fill out when you first start using the platform. And the results of that questionnaire is this task list. It starts with things that have nothing to do with the platform, engaging your stakeholders. How do you actually get company buy-in? How do you customize the console? How do you get whitelisting working so you can make sure the emails get through? So this will take you through the entire process of getting a mature security awareness program started using the KnowBe4 platform. And you'll see that pretty quickly we start talking about importing users. So going into user management in the console. Users are an important part. Groups are equally, if not more important. Everything that's done in the console is done where you're targeting groups of users. So for that reason, we have several different types of groups and different ways to get groups and users into the console. Users can be added either through a CSV import, or we have an Active Directory integration that will actually synchronize your users automatically. So as you add users or remove users, they get pushed into the console without having to do anything. And that allows you to do some automated workflow for onboarding and such. And I'll talk about that a little bit when I start drilling into groups. But first, let's just take a look at a user so you get an idea of what level of data we have about a user when we're looking in the console. So you see the risk score that I had mentioned earlier. But over here, you have a little spider graph. These are all the different factors that go into an individual's risk score. So you can see that we have the exposure as it relates to breaches, the job function that they have, their behavior as it relates to simulated phishing, their training, and then we also have a booster where you can affect that score with maybe some information we don't know. And there's even a way to affect it directly with external events. That's another feature we have where you can push external events in onto a user. So perhaps they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing and you want to actually automatically push that in. There's ways to do that. A little bit further down, we'll see the phish prone percentage for the user. So you can see the results of their various phishing tests and how they've done. And further down from that, you see their training and what training they've completed. And at the bottom, you have a timeline of everything that's ever happened with that user. So phishing, training, when they were added, were they in breaches, all of that information is all there at the user level. So going back, let's talk about those groups. I was mentioning that everything, when you do things within the console, you are going to do it to groups of users. And for that reason, we have 3 different types of groups. We have this one here, which is an Active Directory integrated group, meaning that this accounting group exists in the Active Directory and is automatically synchronized with its membership over to the console. We have this here, which is a console or a ad hoc group where you just put people into a group for some reason in the console. And then you have these ones that have little people on there. These are our smart groups. It's a really important concept is being able to identify groups, not necessarily from Active Directory, but more by behavior. So let's drill into one of these and take a look at it. So first thing I'll see is the risk score for that particular group. But down below, you'll actually see that there's a criteria. Smart groups are effectively dynamic groups based off of something a user is or something a user has or hasn't done. So in this case, user must have clicked more than 2 times in the last 12 months. That's all it is. If a user has clicked more than 2 times, they'll be in this group. If I change this and I say, you know what, let's find everybody that's clicked more than 3 times, you see that the number over here changed. If I save that, it's only going to show me my people that have failed more than 3 times in the last 12 months. If I wanted to get a little bit more specific, I could look for ones where these users are located in, say, the Midwest, because I've got the location field on there. So I could say, all right, just show me the users that are from the Midwest that have clicked more than 3 times in the last 12 months. You see there's 11 users that make this criteria. So there's even a nifty little Venn diagram that'll show me that. But this is a good way to actually target specific groups of users automatically. So perhaps you have an onboarding training that needs to be done annually on an anniversary date. You set up a group, it'll automatically push people in and out as needed based off of whether they've done the training in the last year and what their anniversary date is. So you can cobble together these different criteria to automatically find users for reporting purposes and, more importantly, create a group that you can target training or target phishing at. That's the key point is when you start managing 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 users, you really don't want to have to go figure out who are the users that haven't done GDPR training in the last year or ever. Let the platform do that, and when the platform comes back and says these are the users that haven't done it, have the platform fix that problem. Don't just get a report. So smart groups, very, very powerful feature for automating things in the platform. Once you've got your groups figured out and everything running, you're going to start actually using the platform. And I like to start with phishing because that's the first thing you're going to do is a baseline phishing campaign. And that's another key platform feature is everything is done on campaigns, whether it's a one-time campaign or an ongoing campaign. You'll hear me here talk about campaigns. So looking at my phishing security tests, I can see the different campaigns that are going on. I can drill into an initial campaign, see some metrics about that. I can drill down all the way into the full details of a campaign to find out what different types of things have occurred. So across the top here, I have the different failure types. We have clicking, which is fairly obvious. We have replies. We do have the ability to send phishing emails that don't have links, they don't have attachments. They're just looking for replies. Those are a common threat out there now where people are using CEO fraud or business email compromise, trying to solicit a response from a user that may be outside of the channels that a technical control could catch. So we can track replies to messages. In this case, there are none. I can look for attachment opens. These are going to be your Office documents, HTML, PDF type documents. Are there macros being enabled by the users? When a user gets presented to a web page from clicking a link, do they enter data? So if you want to do credential phishing there. If they're running an older browser, we can see if there's vulnerable plugins. And then we can also see if they use that button I mentioned earlier to actually report the message. So you get all the possible details when you drill down into a campaign. Or you can just get the high level here and say, hey, 30% of the people failed this campaign. So how do you actually phish the users when you're in the console? There are a couple different things you need to know when you want to phish users. First, you have to figure out who you want to phish. That's going to be groups. We've talked about that. We recommend phishing your users at least once a month. If you can phish them a little more frequently, that's good. If you're an organization that can only phish every quarter or, God forbid, every 6 months, that's not really going to get you the same gains that I was showing earlier. You really want to phish a little more frequently. We have some things that we recommend in those cases, one of them being that if you've had people that fail phishing tests, it's usually acceptable to say, hey, how about this? You failed your phishing test, so it's a quarterly thing. For the next 3 months, you're going to get a phishing test every month, so it gives you an opportunity to do better. So it's not a punitive thing. It's just a training approach to getting users an opportunity to do better. And that works really well. So the who is an important thing. Now you have to actually figure out what are you going to phish them with. And that's all done through templates. We use templates for lots of different types of messages. And phishing is no exception. So we have built into the system 3,300 templates. That number changes on a regular basis. And these are templates that we maintain, the system templates. And so if I look at reported phishes of the week, these are going to be changing every week. I can look at a preview and see what this looks like. All right, so this is a good sample one. We have a sales demo, financial reports. These are all the sample ones that we've seen. I like this one. Look at this, a Google one. This looks like a good template. Now, let's say I want to change that. One of the things that we allow you to do in the platform is you can modify any template if you want to. So I'm going to change this one, make it a little bit more personalized. I'm going to put the user's first name in here. And if I wanted to change something, I could say, I'm going to change what happens if they actually click. I'll set it to that. And I'll save this off as my own template. So I could have changed the email addresses. I could spoof a company domain. I could spoof my own domain. I could even start from scratch. If I wanted to make my own template, I could. But there's a lot of built-in ones to save you time. So let's take a look at that now that I've modified it. And you could say, okay, hello, Aaron from Google. You can add it. Okay, this is a nice template. And let's see what happens if a user would actually click on that. This is an example of one of our types of landing page. We call this a social engineering indicator landing page. And what that does is it actually highlights things that should have been caught by the end user. So in this case, there's actually not a lot in the message. So there's just this item up here of make sure that you're looking at where it's from and what the domain is. But all of the messages that we have built into the platform have these different red flags. So you can see some samples here on this Amazon. These are all the red flags. So the red flags only show up if the user fails the test. So it's a good opportunity to do point of failure training on the user. So these are the templates that are built in, and you can see they run the whole gambit. There's some of them that are specific to industries, and there's a huge amount of different translated templates, so you can cover your international end users or users that may not speak English. We have those templates in here as well. Then there's the concept of landing pages. Landing pages are what happens when a user actually clicks on an email. So I showed one here that was the social engineering indicators landing page, but perhaps you want to do one that looks like a login page. So we have this one here that's designed for you to customize. So like our other templates, you can change and modify anything you like. So if you want to make your own landing page, you can. You can base it off of one of these, or you can use ones that built in. So maybe you want a login page that looks like a Microsoft Office 365 login page. We have those. You want a LinkedIn login page. LinkedIn being the most popular social media attack vector for business employees. You put this in front of a user, you find out if it's the user actually entering data, and it counts as a failure. It is important to note we don't actually keep the username and password that they enter. In fact, we strip that before it gets sent over so that we're not going too far. We're the good guys, not the bad guys. Once you have all of that information of who you want to send it to, what you want to send, and what happens if they fail, you can set up a campaign. You can set up as many campaigns as you want, and it's as simple as going and setting a name for that campaign, what group you want to go after. So I'm going to go after my smart group of Midwest clickers. I'm going to go ahead and phish them every month, and I want to say what do I want to send. So I'm going to pick the reported phishes of the week, and by default, It's going to go full random, meaning every user gets their own email. It's a really nice way to actually make sure that you're testing the users and not looking to see, hey, don't send everybody the same phishing email. That's not really a good test. And then I hit create campaign, and then I'm done. That's all it takes to actually phish your users and do it on a repetitive basis so you can have as many of these going as you like. So next big thing to talk about is training. So training works similarly. You have to know who you're going to train, so that's groups, and then you got to know what do you train them on. And that is a whole other tab here called the Mod Store, or short for Module Store. This is the largest security awareness training library in the industry. This is one of the big things that sets us apart from anyone else out there, is that this content is constantly being updated and constantly getting new, fresh content so that your users stay engaged and you actually have something to show them that's not repetitive and it's fun. So looking at this, you'll see just at a glance, we have games that are in here. We have training modules. We have video modules. There's security artwork. There's posters that you can download, wallpaper, lots of different ways to do that training with your users. This one here, for example, the Inside Man, this is an episode-based training. They're about 5 8-minute long episodes. There's 12 of them, kind of matches up with 12 months in a year. You could deploy one of these episodes every month and let your users watch this. It's actually engaging. It's fun. We have customers that have users that complain about the infrequency of the training campaign. That's not something you hear every day. So when you're in the Mod Store, you can base it off of just browsing. You can look for specific types of content. You can look for targeted content, or you could look for topic-based content. So I mentioned GDPR earlier. So if I want to do GDPR training, I could find modules that cover that. I could pick a module, and then I could preview that module in any of the languages that it's available in. And you can see this one, for example, is available in quite a few different languages. So once you pick your content, you go into training, and again, it's all campaign driven. I can see an existing campaign. So I see here one that's going that covers GDPR. I can see one that covers 2019 training. I can drill into this training. I can see how people are doing on the different pieces of content. And I can even go a little bit further down into it, find out who has done what. And if I wanted to, I could send, maybe just hit the people that are incomplete. I could send them a notification directly from the console. And again, there's automated ways to do that built into the platform. So you can set up those campaigns to run every month or on an annual basis. It really depends on how you want to train your users. We have some best practices around that. You can also upload your own content. So if you have your own policies that you want to push out through the platform, or you have your own videos or your own SCORM modules, it's a full-featured LMS, learning management system, that you can use to train your users. And when your users actually go in to do training, they get a very different experience. That training interface for the user looks like this. So it's really geared toward your end users so that they can see quickly at a glance what the training is that they need to do, and they can see what's next on the training that they have. It's also available to be translated into all the different languages your users might speak so that you can pick what language it is, and that will actually change everything on here. And if the module that they're doing is available in that language, it'll switch it over to that language as well. Not only that, there are leaderboards, so you can pit different groups within your organization against each other to see who's doing better. And there are badges that the end user can earn as they go through their training. So it's a fun experience for the users to go through when they're actually doing their training. And if for whatever reason you have your own LMS already and you want to use that LMS, all of our training content in the Mod Store is available for download as part of the subscription. You can pull it into your own LMS, although a lot of companies are finding more and more reasons to use our LMS, as it really is geared for security awareness training, and it's extremely easy to set up and use. All right, I seem to be getting a little tight on time, so I'm just going to hit 2 more tabs, and then I'll stop talking, I promise. So we have the phishing. So this is voice phishing here. This is similar to the phishing, except that it's going to be all based on phone calls. Similarly, you have campaigns that you've run, and you have templates that you can actually set built into the platform, our system templates. Some of them are text-to-speech, so this would be the robo-dialer calling up and looking for a PIN. Other ones are actual recordings that were done, so we had voice actors that actually recorded the intros here. And we're looking for various failures, entering a PIN, entering a certain amount of numbers. It's a good way to find out, are your users falling for those types of phone attacks. And then we also have the USB drive test. And the USB drive test is where you can download files that you can put on your own thumb drives. Users plug in the thumb drive, open those files. It'll track that so you can see if users are paying attention to those types of things. And I have one more minute so I can touch on reporting. With all of these things going on, there's actually a whole another section of the platform that covers reporting. So this is the advanced reporting console. You can go in here and find out the different risk scores for users. You want to find out group report cards, so find out how the accounting group is doing overall. You can drill into that. There's over 70 different reports that are available in the advanced reporting. And if for whatever reason there's more that you want, all of the reporting information is available through APIs, so you can pull it into your own dashboard and do the reporting internally yourself. So with that, I believe that's all I have to share. And I'll go back to the slide deck and just open up the different subscription levels that are available for the platform. Just so everyone knows, the platform is based off of a per user per year pricing schedule, and it depends on how many users you have and what subscription level you want. Use a rule of thumb around 500 users. It's going to be around $15, $16 per user per year to have the platinum level subscription. And you can see here that these are the features that are available at the silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. I like to look at the silver as the bare bones minimum. It's probably one of the most infrequently used levels. Gold gives you a little more training. It gives you the phishing functionality. Once you get up to platform of platinum, you have access to those smart groups, those APIs I was talking about, the social engineering indicators. You get a lot more of the features. And then Diamond is our all-you-can-eat content. So rather than having access to just specific modules, you have access to all of the content that we have and that we're adding on a regular basis. So you can pick and choose what fits your organization best. Now I'm really done.
Okay. Great demo, Greg. I love the live demo. That's always my favorite, I must admit. So thank you for doing that. While we do some Q&A here, I'm going to bring up a poll question for the audience. And the poll question is, what additional information would you like about the KnowBe4 solution? Greg, we've already gotten tons of comments coming in, folks who said, how much they love the KnowBe4 solution, how they've been using it, how it's really helped them, how their scores have gone down. So some great feedback. I've been sharing that with the audience in the questions view there. We do have some questions for you. Let's see, the first one, Chris is asking, he's wondering if you're going to talk about the Phish Alert button. He said this has been extremely valuable for them and that they use it, their users use it daily to report phishing emails. Do you want to talk about that for just a minute?
Certainly. So the Phish Alert button, it's available at all subscription levels. In fact, actually, the Phish Alert button is a free tool. You don't even have to be a platform user to have the Phish Alert button. You get some more features if you are a customer, but it's a plugin. It works with Outlook, or you can install it with Office 365, or you can install it on your Exchange server, G Suite, Lotus Notes. And it's just a way for the end users to report what they think is a phishing email. If you're using the platform to actually send simulations, the nice thing that happens is it can give them immediate feedback of a congratulations or any message that you like that says, well done, that was a simulation, so they know right away what was going on. If it's not a simulation, we'll actually take the message with all of the headers, package it up, and send it to whatever security operations center team that you have so they can do an analysis on it. And it'll let the user know whatever message you want about that message. Maybe you have an SLA on how quickly you'll get back to them, or congratulations on keeping your network safe. It's a really easy way for end users to deal with those messages. And as I mentioned, we actually do have a tool called PhishER for the Security Operations Center, which if you're getting a lot of trained users, you might find yourself getting a lot of those messages, and you need a tool to help manage that. So we have that as well.
Excellent. Excellent. Another question they're asking, Anthony's asking, is the pricing done per user, per month, and how often can we switch out users?
So the question, it is priced per user per year. So it's an annual subscription, and you can swap out the users as often as you need to. The way that the licensing works, you're going to buy a number of users. If you have turnover in the organization, that's not a problem. I mean, if you're going through 100 users and you're rolling out those 100 users every month, you're going to get a call from someone on that. But in a normal organization, you're going to have 15, 30% turnover automatically. So it's not tied to a user, a specific name. So it's not a problem if you have the normal growths and changes in the organization. You buy the number of seats that you need, and that's how many you get to use.
Nice. Another question, can you target custom target groups instead of AD groups?
Absolutely. So the AD groups are a nice way to automate things if you have a good structure of AD. But not everybody uses AD, not everybody has a very clean AD. That's why there's 3 different types of groups. You can make a group just ad hoc in the console where you can pick people and put them in a group, or you can use the smart groups to target groups of users based off of attributes of the users or actions that the users have taken.
Nice. And then David is asking, how is phish-prone % derived?
So the phish-prone percentage is based off of the users. Actually, if you're phishing let's say you phish 100 users, and 10 of the users click, and 1 of the users clicks the link and enters data, it's going to count that as 11 different failure types, and that gives you a little bit of amplitude for those multiple failures in there. So 10 people click, 1 person, and 1 of those people also enters data, would get you an 11% phish-prone percentage. So phish-prone percentage is actually how, for the longest time, the industry measured the successfulness of a training campaign, but we realized it didn't actually cover the true scope of an awareness program, and that's why we have actually started to move towards the risk score, because it's not looking at just the phish-prone percentage of users, but it's also looking at what they've done in the way of training, what exposure they have, how many people report to them. It gives you more insight, and it actually aggregates everything together and actually runs it through machine learning to come up with those scores. So it's a better score overall, although we definitely maintain the phish-prone percentage as a metric that you can see because it's very simple to look at, and there's not a lot of math behind the scenes on that.
Nice. Well, Greg, I think that's all the time we have for our Q&A, but I've queued up a lot of questions for you there in the questions box, if you don't mind checking those out. We really appreciate you being on today. Great demo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
All right, for more information on KnowBe4, make sure you check out that handout that's available for download there in your audience console. That is the Phishing by Industry Benchmark Report for 2019. It's very insightful and very actually beautiful to read, a very well done report. Also, of course, visit knowbe4.com and check out, they've got a ton of free tools and their free demo that you can try out for yourself as well. And now it's time for our first prize winners to be announced. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Daniel Garcia of Colorado. And our first grand prize, an iPad, is going to Stephen Root of Ohio. Congratulations, Daniel Garcia and Stephen Root. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our next presenters on today's event. That is Katie Cole, Product Marketing Manager, and Jamie Hines, Product Manager, both at SolarWinds. Katie and Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Katie. Take it away.
I'm going to go ahead and just start sharing our slides. Great. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. Jamie and I are here from the SolarWinds security team to give a quick presentation on why security is so top of mind for IT pros these days, and how we as a company approach security, and to show you some of our tools that we have to offer to help IT pros increase their security posture. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right in and talk to you about why security is on everybody's minds. So the reality is that security is not just a concern for large organizations anymore. Last year, almost 70% of small and medium-sized businesses had experienced some form of cyber attack in the last 12 months. And 58% of those SMBs had a data breach, meaning those attacks were successful. But not only are more types of organizations being targeted, the average cost of a data breach is enormous. And we're talking almost, $4 million per incident on a worldwide basis, and that cost almost doubling for companies in the U.S. And in the 2019 Cost of Data Breach report, they touched on how the biggest monetary impact actually comes from the loss of business and customer trust. And from that same report, sadly, we see that glitches and human errors still account for almost 50% of those data breaches. So even with training, sometimes users still have some issues and just fall into the traps of cyber criminals. So these threats are real and costly. Not only are they real and costly, but organizations know that they're at risk and they're looking for answers. They're looking for tools to help them detect threats and to reduce the time it takes to do forensic analysis. And at SolarWinds, we know there's a need in the market for software that can help organizations stay secure and recover from incidents faster. So our approach to addressing this need is to make security tools that are simple, powerful, and affordable. And our portfolio of products is squarely rooted in the NIST Framework, providing tools that will help users identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover from the increased threat landscape that we're seeing today. So here we have a quick breakdown of the different products we offer in our security portfolio and how they map to those NIST pillars. But today we're going to focus on one of our most fundamental tools in the security arsenal, the Security Event Manager. So Security Event Manager is our form of a SIEM solution, a Security Information and Event Management solution, and that's going to help you protect your infrastructure from advanced cybersecurity threats. So a lot of people, when they hear a SIEM, their natural instinct is to say, oh, that's more than what we need, and we don't have the time or resources needed for that. But we believe that a SIEM is a fundamental piece of any environment to help you protect your organization. A SIEM can help improve your organizational continuity. It's going to help you minimize downtime and exposure. It can also be a force multiplier by freeing up your team members for more important tasks than watching logs roll in all day. And it can really speed up the process of compliance audits. So, and you might be thinking, yeah, Katie, that all sounds great, but there are a lot of barriers, and we can hear those thoughts loud and clear. So traditionally, a SIEM solution is very resource intensive, requiring professional services to set them up or a full dedicated team to maintain and get the value out of them. Or they could require you to be a security or compliance expert to know what to do with the tool and what to do with the information that's being provided by the tool. Maybe with the reduced budgets or increase in threats, new regulations popping up, these tasks just got added to your plate, and you're not that expert. On top of that, traditional SIEM solutions are expensive, and the cost is variable depending on the volume of logs that you pull in each day, making it really hard to tell management, this is how much our SIEM is going to cost, and this is the ROI we're going to expect to get back from it. But SolarWinds Security Event Manager is designed and licensed to reduce all those complexities and make a SIEM a reality for all types of users and organizations, not just very large organizations with massive budgets and security expertise in-house. So at this point, I'm going to hand over the reins to Jamie to tell you a little bit more about Security Event Manager, how it works, what it can do for you, and even demo some of the functionality.
Thanks, Katie. So as Katie mentioned, our Security Event Manager solution is our SIEM solution, which is designed to detect and respond to security events, typically via log data. So when you think of log data and all the sources you have on your network, such as Windows servers, maybe some Linux servers, your firewalls, IDS, etc., there's a wide range of sources on your network that's generating vast amounts of log data. And what we typically hear from customers is it's a challenge to actually make sense of all that data. And, even before that, actually where to send that log data, rather than having log data reside on those devices. From both a security and a compliance perspective, it's vitally important you have a single source of truth and somewhere to actually consolidate those event logs and aggregate them to make searching, reporting, and alerting on those logs much easier. So in terms of our own Security Event Manager, we provide, first of all, real-time event correlation. So as all those devices that I mentioned are generating log data, trying to detect patterns in those logs that may actually indicate an active attack taking place, be it an insider abuse or maybe a careless insider. Equally, if there is, let's say, a bad known actor, so an IP address known for things like phishing or malware, trying to communicate with the device on your network, all those kind of potentially malicious activities can be detected via event correlation. So we'll go through it in a few minutes on a demo, but certainly we include several hundred correlation rules out of the box to help you get up and running and start getting value and insight from the tool as quickly as possible. So Security Event Manager also offers active response. So to correlate event logs is one thing, and actually when we discover something unusual, you typically need more than just an email alert. That email alert could easily be going to some inbox that isn't monitored by someone, or gets missed through the pile of other alerts coming from other solutions. So we focus on active response, which actually allows our product to respond to threats in real time by actually performing actions. So say, for example, you see the example there of detaching USB devices. If we see a user plugging in a USB device into a file server at 3 a.m. and start to copy, let's say, Word documents, that's highly suspicious, and it could be someone trying to siphon off important information from your file server via USB device. We can then actually automatically block that device. So rather than just send an email alert to say that a user has plugged in a USB device and is now copying data, you can now automatically respond to that event by detaching the USB device on that server. So there's lots of other interesting active responses we can take, which we'll walk through on the demo. The one thing SIEM solutions should provide as well is a log stream. So having instant visibility of exactly what's going on in your environment, right now. So Security Event Manager also provides a real-time log stream that allows you to see exactly what's going on and also filter and search that data. So chances are your environment is pumping a huge amount of log data into a product like Security Event Manager. So being able to look for certain usernames, file names, IP addresses, keywords, etc., it allows you to identify and respond to those threats much quicker when you have that log data in front of you and being able to interact with it in real time. So, one of the big areas that drives people to SIEM solutions as well in our product is the need for compliance reports and compliance rules. So the compliance landscape is, typically changing on a pretty frequent basis and certainly getting more complex as time goes on. Like I'm based in Europe, and we see over here in GDPR, I think it's only now people are kind of wrapping their heads around it and the complexity associated with that. So certainly, IT and security administrators need tools to help them with compliance reporting and, to ensure they are compliant. So when it comes around to audit season, to be able to have the data on hand to show to auditors that you are compliant with GDPR or PCI or ISO or whatever other regulatory compliance you need to adhere to. So when it comes to threat intelligence, while your log data is a great source of detecting threats, having some additional context on those log data and enriching that log data with some additional information from other sources, again, can be a real key component to detecting threats. So Security Event Manager integrates with threat feeds online to look for bad known IP addresses appearing in your logs. So we look with blacklists online, which are updated daily, looking for things like ransomware, malware, phishing attacks, etc. So if we see a device communicating with, let's say, a command and control server, in your log data, we'll flag that immediately to let you know that there is potentially malicious communication taking place, either ingress or egress from your network. Finally, file integrity monitoring is also a key component of our solution. So when you consider the amount of potentially sensitive information that's stored within Word documents, Excel files, PDFs, PowerPoint, etc. on your network that could even be in some cases residing on your users' workstations. Having the ability to monitor who's accessing those files, who's making change to the files, maybe who's trying to access the files but being blocked from accessing them, etc. Again, is a huge indicator of potentially malicious activity or even a data breach in some cases. So having the ability to monitor suspicious activities on your most sensitive files, directories, and even registry keys as well. That's something we do with Security Event Manager too, and gives you great insight into the activity on the files on your network. So with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen and move over to a demo of the two. It might just take me a second to share my screen. Hopefully you now see it. So this is what the Security Event Manager interface looks like. And so as I mentioned with the real-time stream, this is all the data coming in from all your various different sources on your network. So regardless if it's a firewall, a server, a workstation, etc., coming in here, you're going to see all in a nice single pane of glass, easy to use, easy to navigate through your log data. One thing you might notice here is we're getting logs, logs from a wide variety of sources, but all those logs are in a nice, easy to read format. So for people on the call, who maybe have seen log data before, it can be a challenge given that, let's say, Palo Alto logs are going to have a different format to Cisco logs. And Cisco logs are going to look wildly different to a Windows event log. So we go through the process of normalization. So we include several hundred parsers out of the box to put things in a nice, easy to read, consistent format. So when you're looking at your log data, you know that if you click on something here, and if I look at all the fields, it's going to split that log line into various different fields. I'm not trying to decipher what a raw log line looks like, and I can get that information quicker and ultimately comprehend the logs and even detect threats quicker thanks to this, all this information parsed into very informative fields right out of the box. So under the all events filter here, I can see, as it says, all the events from all my different sources. But if you're sending several thousand events every single second into the application, it might be hard to hone in on the logs that might be of interest to you. So for that reason, we have several filters out of the box. So you can see, categorized filters here. So for example, I'm looking at threat events here. And in this case, I'm seeing lots of TCP traffic events, and the event info contains a denied connection. In here, I can see there was an attempt to connect for an inside address. It was denied by my security policy, and I can see the destination machine, the source machine, etc. But it was actually flagged as dangerous activity, as it turned out to be a threat. So the is threat field is currently set to true, meaning the IP address is trying to communicate with the device on my network is actually appearing on the blacklist online. So I can then investigate that IP address, and I can see the reputation score, maybe why is it a threat, what the IP address is known for. In this case, the traffic was denied, so it was a non-issue, but I can easily track then, is there threats trying to get onto my network or even successfully getting onto my network. I'm also collecting logs from my antivirus solution here. So again, that antivirus solution is generating log data. And again, I can see here, out of all the potentially millions of events coming in, on my filter, I can easily see there's two new virus attack events, and I can see the name of the virus, the source account currently logged in, the action taken. So I can see it was quarantined. So lots of valuable information as well from a virus attack perspective as well. So both from a security and a compliance use case as well, change management, especially in Active Directory, is hugely important. So let's say if a user on the help desk is creating new Active Directory users, so that should be validated that they are correctly creating those users, to make sure that the passive policy is enabled, and even more importantly, what permissions that user is getting. Are they just creating a template of a user and assigning this generic permissions that could be even admin permissions? So you want to see here, for example, group changes. I want to see, what username is a new group member. It's in the administrators group. I want to see who added the user, so I can see the source account, and I can see in this case it was Halo was the name of the source account, and I can see that he added this user to the admin group. Was that appropriate? is he may be creating users and adding them to the admin group that he can use himself to perform malicious activity. So having that insight in real time into your log data and to focus on all those Active Directory events, such as new user accounts, accounts being locked out, people changing their passwords, users being added or removed from groups, etc., is hugely valuable to any administrator to determine any potentially suspicious activity, but equally important for auditors. So when it is compliance audit season, and you need to show which users left your company on a particular day, show me the corresponding log data to show that those accounts are actually disabled in a timely manner, being able to produce a report and showing those logs to validate compliance to whichever compliance standard you need to adhere to. Again, hugely valuable and a real time saver when it comes to audit season to be able to generate those logs. So for example, if I'm in group changes here and I want to look for logs that contain the keyword admin, click on admin, maybe show me from a particular time range over the last X number of minutes or hours or days. I can then select a time range. I can now see all the activity on the admin group, and I can then export that to a CSV to present to my auditor to show them all the activity for the day they requested that information. Finally, authentication, again, very an indicator of any suspicious activity, especially failed logons. So being able to see failed logons, maybe looking for, in this case, let's say a keyword that looks for maybe bad password. So I can come in here, type in either my live filter to see users who are currently entering bad passwords, equally look historically, and I can see in this case there is a user logon with the username, and the failure reason is bad password. So again, no need to learn any complex query language. It's literally a simple to use keyword search. So if you're not overly familiar with log data or interacting with log data with a very low learning curve, you can easily start seeing your logs, filtering your logs, and searching them. So they are just some out-of-the-box filters. You can also easily create your own custom filters using a drag-and-drop interface and assigning actions to that as well very easily using our very intuitive filter builder here. Again, no need for query language, drag-and-drop, very straightforward to create your own custom searches and custom queries as well. So I mentioned as well in the PowerPoint slides was the correlation rules. So, unless you are lucky enough to have a fully scaled and staffed SOC in your environment, you're probably not going to have the time or resources to sit here on a daily basis, 24/7, watching all your log data. So thanks to the correlation rule engine, you have another set of eyes monitoring each and every event and detecting unusual sequences of events and performing actions on those. Can really help you to identify and respond to threats much easier than just relying on manually trying to correlate and monitor your logs. So the Security Event Manager includes several hundred correlation rules out of the box that help you find threats very quickly and the most common threats at that. So say, for example, the USB device I mentioned earlier on. Let's say I have a whitelist or a blacklist of USB devices, or equally a whitelist of users who are allowed to use USB devices or users who are not allowed to use USB devices. I can come into my USB rule here, and I can see the rule is simply saying if a log contains the word attached, and it's also a USB device, and the serial number of the device is not in my authorized USB devices, I can then perform actions based on that. Equally, I can adjust my thresholds here to say it's okay if they plug it in, let's say, once in 30 seconds. But if I see that same user plugging in 3 different devices, maybe over the course of, let's say, 5 minutes on different machines, only then trigger the action. So you can make these rules as simple or as complex as you like. Once I have my correlation set up, and again, this is all out of the box, so you don't need to configure your own custom rules if you don't like that concept, you can then add new actions. So in this case, I'm going to detach the USB device that was inserted. I'm also going to send a pop-up message to the user to let them know that we've detached the USB device. And I can just see here some of the other actions we can take. So we spoke a minute ago about the bad known actors appearing in your logs. So being able to block the IP address on your firewall. If there is a successful connection, you can say block that IP address on my firewall to prevent any further communication. Equally, if I want to go as far as disabling the networking on a machine, so let's say we see a virus attack or a ransomware coming from your antivirus solution or your EDR solution, you can then use Security Event Manager to actually disable the NIC on that machine to stop the spread of that virus. If you see an unusual process start, you can kill processes, you can log off users, obviously send email alerts, and lots more beyond. So, incredibly powerful, not just to send an email alert, but to correlate and then use an active response to stop an attack in its tracks. You can really save and mitigate some of the damage that can be associated with malicious insiders, careless insiders, or equally malicious external attacks also. So before we just jump to a quick Q&A, in terms of compliance reporting, we do also have a reporting tool available with the product. It comes with the product itself. And in this reporting tool, we have compliance reports for things like, as we see here, PCI, SOX, HIPAA, DISA STIGs, GPG in the UK, and lots more. So when it comes to compliance audits, you can see all the various different categories that we have, ranging from authentication, change management, traffic audits, file events, so looking for unusual file changes or maybe a user accessing credit card information when it comes to PCI. So lots of valuable reports out of the box that has some of the maybe the pain associated with going through compliance audits. Just to give you a flavor of how some of these reports look. For example, I want to see a list for the last month of newly created user accounts. I can then present this report to my auditor and show them what accounts were created, who created them, and show that they were properly created and added to the correct groups. So a very useful tool when it comes to compliance season and leveraging your log data for compliance audits. So David or Katie, I'm sure there's lots of questions coming up. So if I'm going to share my screen and we can go back to the slides and answer any questions you may have, if that's okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Great demo, Jamie. Great presentation,
Thanks,
Katie. Let's see here. What questions do we have? Chris is asking, can the event log determine and log what files are being written to a USB device?
Absolutely, yeah. So as part of a file copy event here, you can easily see if user is creating files on a USB device or copying files to a USB device. And you can create a block action based on, let's say, if there's an excessive number of file copies.
Okay, nice. And while we do some Q&A, I'm going to pop up the poll question for the audience that says, would you be interested in any of the following resources? Just check all that apply. I'll just leave that up while we do some more Q&A here. Leo is asking, do you have virus scan and monitoring built in, or does your app depend on external AV applications?
Yeah, so we don't have any antivirus solution built into the product. We ingest log data from your antivirus solution to view and correspond with, or to correlate that log data. So no, we don't have native capabilities, but we do have the ability to ingest logs from your solution.
Okay, nice. Shravanas is asking, how does the SIEM integrate with AWS? Is that possible?
Yeah, so we don't currently support log data from, let's say, CloudTrail or CloudWatch. It's something that we are closely tracking requests for. However, you can deploy Security Event Manager in AWS if you wish. So for customers that maybe are in a hybrid cloud or want to monitor, let's say, data from VMs running in AWS or consist logs from devices in AWS, we can certainly do that. So we can deploy the product on AWS, but not necessarily collect logs from native sources in AWS.
Okay, nice. Dwayne is asking, do you offer a free trial of the product?
We absolutely do, yeah. So if you go to sullivans.com, there is a fully functional 30-day evaluation for the product. It's shipped as a virtual appliance, so it's very straightforward to get up and running. You can do it on VMware, Hyper-V, Azure, or AWS.
Nice. David is asking, what kind of storage would I need to use this, to store the log data?
Yeah, so it's kind of a tricky question to answer because it does depend on the amount of logs that you're transmitting. But as a rule of thumb, we compress our database massively by about 98%, typically speaking. So you get a lot of log storage for less space. So we can certainly expand our storage to several terabytes if needed, but by default we start with 250 gigs. And for depending on your Windows environment or how many logs you're sending, that will typically get you, we see about a month's worth of data, depending on the log volume that you have. So it's very easy to scale up. It's just a matter of assigning more storage to your virtual appliance, and you can store more logs for longer that way.
Nice, nice. Mark is asking, is this offered as a managed service?
It is not. It's typically done as an on-prem deployment where you have full control of the product, full control over the ability to create your own custom correlation rules, filters, etc. So really tailored to you. So it's something that you purchase and you manage and maintain yourself. It's not a managed service.
Got it. Got it. Can the logs be imported into Splunk?
So there isn't a direct integration with Splunk, but we do have the ability to forward events. So, and that's can be a common use case where you have customers using Security Event Manager maybe on local sites, but within the organization there might be a larger Splunk deployment. So for that use case, you can use LEM to maybe aggregate and correlate logs, and then forward the raw log data to Splunk for further analysis.
Okay. And Dennis is asking, can notifications go to PagerDuty as well? So I assume, would that work?
There isn't native PagerDuty integration, but we can send things like an SNMP trap or a email. So if PagerDuty has the ability to, let's say, parse an SNMP trap from our product or a email, that should work, but there isn't any native API integration as such. Nice,
nice. Okay. So that's all the time we have in our live Q&A, it looks like, but there's still quite a few more questions in there for you, Jamie, to get back to. Last question someone has here is to download the demo, the free evaluation. Do they just go to solarwinds.com?
Yes, solarwinds.com, and then into the security section, and then into Security Event Manager. I believe Katie has replied to one of the questions there with the direct link, but solarwinds.com into security, and you'll easily find it there. Excellent, excellent.
Eileen just commented they use the product and love it. So good to hear that kind of feedback. Thank you so much for being on the event today, Jamie and Katie.
Thank you
for having us.
And thank you to SolarWinds for sponsoring today's Security MegaCast. For more information, of course, visit solarwinds.com, download the demo, give it a try for yourself. Also, check out the handout that's available for download there in your audience console. That is a Security Event Manager data sheet on the product that you just saw a demo of. And with that, it is time for our next prize giveaway. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Eric Nellison from Illinois, and another iPad going to Daniel Brown from Massachusetts. Stay tuned for the grand prize drawing at the end of today's presentation. After our very next presentation here, where we'll give out 3 iPads and another gift card. So I would stay tuned for that. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our next presenter on today's Security MegaCast. That is Mr. Sam Cantrell, Security Solutions Engineer at Rapid7. Sam, are you with us?
Absolutely. How's it going?
Going great. Thanks for being on the event. Take it away.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Sam Cantrell here, Solutions Engineer for Rapid7, and today we're going to be discussing Insight VM. That is our vulnerability management solution provided by Rapid7. That being said, I'm a type of individual that likes to go right into a demonstration, so I'm going to share my screen at this time, and then following the demonstration, I'll go into some slides that have some additional information for all of you. So I'm going to share my screen right now, one moment. And just to clarify, my screen is visible, correct?
I do see it, yes, Sam. You probably want to maximize your browser there.
Absolutely. And just to let you know who I am, I'm the bald individual in the lower right-hand side. Always like to put a face to the name. So Insight VM, being a vulnerability management solution, we really want to focus on 3 key pillars: how it can help you collect, prioritize, and ultimately remediate, giving you visibility into your assets and vulnerabilities, but ultimately helping you through that remediation workflow and giving you that command and control. The way our solution works in the architectural sense is, first and foremost, there's a security console. And that can be deployed via an OVA as an example, or a software installation on a Linux Windows operating system. And that comes with a local scan engine. So wherever that's deployed, whether it's deployed in the cloud or on-prem, you can immediately start scanning. Now you'll notice on the right-hand side, there's another scan engine icon. That indicates that we are a distributed scan engine model. So you can distribute as many scan engines as you wish at no additional cost. And what makes this solution unique is that the Security Console, what brands it inside VM, is simply allowing the Security Console to communicate to the inside platform. This allows you to leverage additional capabilities with our solutions, such as dashboards, remediation projects, goals and SLAs, cloud configuration assessment with AWS, as well as the ability to leverage the lightweight agent, which can be deployed on Linux, Mac, and Windows operating systems. So let's imagine, if you will, you have the Security Console deployed, you've paired it to the inside platform, which is a SOC 2 compliant environment hosted in AWS. This is generally what you would initially see. So to break down this demonstration for all of you, we're going to start with collect. How can we collect information into our solution to give you that visibility? So the way we do that either through our scan engines running those discovery scans or vulnerability scans. You can also leverage the agent, which will give you the equivalent of a fully authenticated scan, giving you that asset identification of installed software and so on and so forth of that asset, as well as the ability to leverage discovery connections. So the way we break that down from a collection standpoint is if you select Create and Cite, we wanted our solution to be very intuitive and easy to use. So looking at this, you can see you can follow this workflow directly from the left-hand side and work your way to the right. Now, many of you on this call are probably familiar with vulnerability management as a whole. That being said, on this Asset tab, you can see that you can enter in your target set, IP addresses, siren notation, so on and so forth. But what I want to draw your attention to that's unique in this aspect is the ability to leverage connections. So I have one built. Project Sonar is our open source project to identify, different FQDNs out there on the web that may be relevant to your organization. But you can see by me selecting that connection, it's built my target set. To give everybody on this MegaCast visibility into what connections are available, I'm going to the Admin tab and selecting Connections Manage. And if you look at our discovery connections, not only do we have Project Sonar, which you briefly saw, but we can integrate with AWS to pull those asset tags and give you visibility dynamically into that environment, with Azure as well, with leveraging the connection with DHCP, Active Directory. And what's useful about this is, normally when you run your vulnerability management scans, and you run them on a scheduled basis, say, for example, weekly or so on and so forth, and maybe you have blackout windows where you don't want to scan during certain time periods. With those connections, let's say some new asset populates outside of that regular scheduled time window, you can designate an automated action based on those discovery connections. So say, for example, a new asset is discovered based on that discovery connection, a trigger can be created so that it can either scan that asset automatically or make sure that it's added to the schedule, thereby giving you visibility from a discovery perspective. Again, our ability to collect information is very tailorable to everybody's individual use cases. We support multiple means of authentication that can be leveraged. We also have the ability for you to customize and leverage multiple templates within our solution, whether it's a PCI, policy, HIPAA scan, and you can also tailor and copy our scans and tune them as you see fit. As mentioned, we can leverage our engines that are included with the Security Console. You can deploy as many as you wish. And in conjunction with that, you can also leverage the agent. One thing that's unique with large organizations that I've supported in the past, they really want to pool engines so that they can share the workload and decrease scan time. So you can adjust your scan template to increase more assets simultaneously, but in conjunction with that, you can pool scan engines together. We don't charge for scan engines. In fact, everything I'm discussing today comes with the solution. So we are licensed based on number of assets scanned for vulnerabilities or against a policy check. And an asset to us is one asset. So for example, if an asset has multiple NICs, multiple IPs, we still count that as one asset. And we'll talk about how we fingerprint that when we talk prioritization. But back to engine pooling, what's nice about this is if you create an engine pool let's say with 2 distributed engines, and you pull them together, they'll split the workload. So if you're scanning 1,000 assets as an example, one engine will take 500, the other one will take 500. So you can divvy out the workload in that sense. We also have an alerting functionality to push information. I believe when I joined, somebody had mentioned Splunk integration, so we can easily push syslog as well, and we also have partner integrations with various SIMs as well. And you can also configure email notification for alerts. So really, that's how we're collecting in a nutshell. Really where the rubber meets the road, because every vulnerability management solution under the sun has a methodology for collecting, right? I just want to emphasize some of the unique features that our product has. Let's talk prioritization. Ultimately, with a vulnerability management program, it's important to identify assets that have critical business context for your organization. Not all assets need to be weighed the same. The CEO's laptop may need additional risk context because of the type of data he or she has on that device. Maybe you have certain servers that provide very important centers of gravity for your organization based on the functions or applications they run, and subsequently they need to have additional weight added. What you can do with our solution very quickly is not only apply criticality tags to give them a prioritized weight, but very quickly you can create dynamic or static asset groups. So just as an example, even before I run my first scan or deploy my agent, I can say, hey, I want to focus on my operating systems that contain Windows Server as an example. And I also want to focus on Windows servers running a specific type of software like SQL. And now based on this list, I know for a fact that these are important. I want to make it a dynamic asset group so that anything that matches the parameters that you set up top will be placed into that bucket and then subsequently tagged with either a custom tag, like identifying the OS, or a location tag. Maybe these Windows servers are in my data center. And more importantly, as I mentioned, maybe that criticality tag to give it that additional weight. And we have multiple criticality tags from very high to very low. And what's interesting about this is when we jump to a particular asset record, you'll notice that for this one Windows 7 device, we have an original risk score of 392,689. Now, before we dive into that score, going back to what I stated about those criticality tags, you'll notice that there's this context-driven score. By default, very high will double that score, but you can change the math based on how you prioritize assets in your organization. Maybe you want to triple the score. You can do so. But what's really useful about these tags in conjunction with giving you that weighted score is the ability to filter our dashboards and reports based on those asset groups and, more importantly, those tags as well. When we fingerprint an asset, we look at the following components: MAC address, followed by the unique unique operating system identifier of the system, or if an agent's deployed, we'll also have that agent ID, followed by the host name and then IP address in that order. We don't want asset duplication, neither do you, so that's why we weigh those fingerprints for those assets based on that methodology. Now, you're all probably wondering, okay, that's great, but how did you come up with this score? Where does it come from? Really, where that comes from is our ability to apply real risk for a vulnerability. So, for example, we'll look and identify the vulnerabilities on an asset, and we want to identify those that have malware kits or exploits associated with it. We take CVSS into account and give you a severity ranking, critical, severe, moderate, but we weigh each vulnerability on a score of 0 to 1,000, taking into account that CVSS score, but also showing you, are there malware kits associated with that particular vulnerability? Well, this is WannaCry. That's not good. In conjunction with that, we also want to show you what exploits have been created to take advantage of that vulnerability, whether it's a Metasploit module or something from the exploit database. One thing that's unique about us in terms of an organization at Rapid7 are two things. First, we own and control Metasploit, not just the community variant of the tool, but the professional variant. If you're leveraging the professional variant, we have closed-loop validation for these vulnerabilities so that if there is a Metasploit module, if you're leveraging Metasploit Pro, you can send that information to it, run those exploits, and if they are successfully executed, at that point they'll be marked as validated vulnerabilities, giving you an additional layer of prioritization. The second part is the skill level needed. You'll notice that we break them down by either novice, intermediate, or expert, and that's important when taking into context how to prioritize remediating these vulnerabilities. And that goes into our risk score, which is the base impact of the vulnerability modified by its initial likelihood of compromise, but then we further modify it by threat exposure over time, giving you that real risk score for those vulnerabilities and that combined real risk score for your assets. And again, let's say, for example, you have a vulnerability that you're just like, well, we are aware of this, but we have a compensating control in place. You can easily do a quick vulnerability exception, apply it to an asset group, your entire environment, a specific asset, give your reasoning behind it, and then set an expiration date because maybe your organization needs to reassess those vulnerability exceptions or policy overrides during certain time periods or quarterly, as an example. And as you can see, I'm an admin. I can submit and approve. Standard user can submit, and we have multiple ways for you to customize role-based access for our solution. So that's how we're prioritizing in your environment. The fun part now is remediation. So for remediation, really we have a lot of components to discuss, and that's where I want to spend the majority of our time on today. Looking at our solution, you'll notice that we have, well, first and foremost, dashboards, reporting, projects. From a reporting standpoint, you have the ability to automate and schedule reports to be generated on a reoccurring basis. Those can be customized and scoped. So for example, maybe I have an audit report I would like to create. I want to see an example of what that report looks like, but maybe for your organization, you want to move things around. You want to adjust and customize it. So I can select Manage Report Templates, copy an existing base template, add or remove different sections, change vulnerability details, add my company logo, and a personalized paragraph to give that report that context that's unique per that report. As I mentioned, from a scoping perspective, you can even select different asset groups, tags, those scan configurations or sites to build the report off of, and then also have those created on a scheduled reoccurring basis and ultimately automatically distributed to the appropriate audience upon completion. Now, our most popular report, and you can see we have quite a few policy reports, PCI, so on and so forth. The one I want to draw your attention to that I always recommend for my future customers to leverage initially, whether it's on a free proof of concept or whether it's they've initially got the solution up and running, is the top 25 remediations by risk. Because ultimately, where do you start? What can you do as an organization to have the most impact in reducing your vulnerability percentage and your overall risk percentage? What this report will do based on how you scope it, whether it's a specific environment, specific asset groups, or your entire org, it will tell you, hey, you need to do these top 25 remediation actions because by doing so, you're going to mitigate 63.9% of your vulnerabilities, thereby reducing your risk by 68%. So we'll provide the remediation, how many assets it needs to be applied to, how many vulnerabilities is that going to address, how many exploits are associated with those vulnerabilities or malware kits, and what's that overall risk reduction with the steps on how to conduct that, as well as taking patch supersedence into account for patches as well. Now, every vulnerability management solution under the sun does have reporting. Where we go a step further is leveraging that insight platform that we discussed earlier with the solution. So everything that you've seen to this point has been localized on the security console. By enabling that connection to the insight platform, now you're going to see some of that additional functionality I mentioned earlier. Taking that into account, I always, it's the old military mind of mine, I like to brief off of dashboards. I like a living, breathing environment that I can customize and tailor. So as you can see, when I select the dashboards, it's navigating me to the Insight platform. And this can be a customized, tailored view. For the purpose of this demonstration, based on the time constraint, I want to show you a few of the cards that I've added. So I added a vulnerability discovery date by severity, assets with meltdown, operating system. We do have the ability to provide you container visibility, not just through an authenticated scan to identify host rank containers, but synchronizing with different registries and repositories. And you can see I've also added this cloud configuration assessment card as well, which we'll go into detail in a moment. So let's say you want to customize your own view. You can add as many different dashboard views as you wish, give it whatever name you would like, and then also make them externally facing to other members of your organization. And what I mean by that is maybe you have an executive dashboard that you would like to brief from, and that individual or individuals don't necessarily need Security Console access, but you want them to be able to see certain dashboards for the purpose of briefings. You can give them that visibility so when they log in to the Insight platform, they're able to see the dashboards and the projects that are associated with them. These cards are tailorable. So when we talked about asset groups earlier, maybe I want to take my vulnerability discovery date by severity, and I want to filter it by one of those asset groups I created. And as you could see, there was just a lot of different options that you could do. Maybe I want to focus on my external assets and filter this card based on that information. And looking at this, I can see that, hey, we have some critical vulnerabilities that are within that 0 to 3rd day mark. I want to focus on that piece and filter that information down. I can see which assets have those vulnerabilities, and from here, I can either take that list, export it if I need to, or create a remediation project. So maybe we need to take care of this right away. It takes that scope and automatically builds out what steps need to be taken. I can then assign this to teams, teammates. Hey, I need this done by, let's say, I want this done by the end of the month. And if I have ServiceNow or Jira, we integrate with those ticketing solutions so that when projects are created, they can automatically create a ticket in those appropriate solutions. And if your organizations are comfortable working out of Jira and ServiceNow, they can still do so, because if they update those tickets in those various ticketing solutions, they'll reflect in the projects. So if I was assigned a project, I can go to my projects view and see exactly what needs to take place. So I can jump in and say, oh, okay, what actions do I need to take? Enable grub password, all right. What are my steps I need to take? Is there a ticket that's been created and closed? What asset do I need to assign this to or provide that remediation? And what vulnerability is it addressing? And as I work through this, I can mark them as either awaiting verification or will not fix, so that when the next scan runs, or when the agent communicates again, if that vulnerability is no longer present, it moves it to closed. But now, as opposed to just comparing and contrasting reports, you have the ability to visualize what is new, what's being remediated over time. And again, these are just a handful of cards. To give you the full visibility, we actually have over 100 cards that can be added and tailored and filtered based on what you need. So for example, maybe from a remediation standpoint, you already saw this new versus remediated vulnerabilities over time, but maybe you just want to give kudos to the individuals on your team that are just doing a great job of remediating those vulnerabilities. So you can add that card as well to provide that visibility. Maybe I want to see how many of my assets have or are susceptible to WannaCry. I can add that WannaCry card right here. Simply add it, and it's going to reflect that information. And just like the other cards I explained, I can select it, expand it, and subsequently filter it down to those particular environments, asset groups, tags, operating systems, and then save that filter so you don't have to readjust the cards. As you can see, if an asset has an agent, that agent symbol will populate on that asset as well within our dashboard views. Now, one thing that's also really neat that I'd like to talk about is this goals and SLAs, because ultimately, with a vulnerability management program, there are goals, right? You would like to create goals for your team to adhere to. Maybe, for example, you have a goal to remove obsolete operating systems from your environment, or remediate all critical vulnerabilities during a certain time period. Let's do an SLA right now. So I can come in, I can select Create Goal. I'm going to do an SLA. So maybe for your organization, you want to focus on an asset group that's critical to your organization, as an example, or a particular OS. So I'm going to select asset group, starts with, I don't know, let's go with my Windows 7s as an example. So it's filtered by those assets. I can then specify my criteria. I want to focus on vulnerability severities that are critical. And I want this done within, 10 days. So once that's done, I can then manage this goal and then allow it to be populated within that dashboard. So now that that's initiating, I'll be able to track that goal, not just from the goals and SLA page, but more importantly, I can also add that card now to my dashboards. And you can see that now that's starting to populate. I can see how many of my assets are remediated and how many are currently in that grace period since I just stood that up, or if any are going to be past due, at which point I can then start creating those projects directly from this view as well. The last piece that I would like to talk about, or just a couple more before we go into the slides and Q&A, is cloud configuration. So our Insight platform resides in AWS, so obviously we really play nice with AWS, we play nice with Azure, we can deploy scan engines into Google Cloud, Agent can be built as part of that gold image for those inferior assets in those cloud environments. But we also add this cloud configuration capability to assess, as those buckets are created, if they are able to meet your compliance objectives for your organization. So this is a new feature we just rolled out, but one thing I want to emphasize is everything that I've pointed out comes with it. We are not modularly based. So you do have the ability to leverage all this functionality with our solution. Again, licensed by number of assets. And for those of you that are big on containers, again, we don't license based on number of containers, just the hosts leveraging those containers themselves. And as I mentioned, we can sync with those different repositories to assess those containers for vulnerabilities. And that's just a brief overview of the Insight VM platform. So I'm going to stop sharing at this time and get ready for the Q&A. That being said, looking at the slides, let me just scan over those slides really quick. One moment. One thing I want to mention is not just Insight VM, which we covered today, but really we're focused on partnering with organizations from a security operations perspective, SecOps. So that's why with our Insight platform, not only do we have Insight VM, but we also have Insight IDR, our SIM solution, Insight AppSec, our DAS solution to scan those web applications, whether they're internal or externally facing, Insight Connect, our orchestration automation tool to allow you to build workflows with our solution, as well as the ability for us to leverage our services. We still conduct pen test engagements. We do advisory services. We do have the ability to manage these solutions, whether it's managed IVM, managed Insight IDR, or managed AppSec. That being said, if you have any additional questions, well, I'll be free to answer them in the Q&A. We talked about how we collect, prioritize, and remediate. And lastly, if you're interested in learning more, feel free to sign up for a 30-day trial, and here's the link.
Great demo, Sam. Really love seeing the product in action, and I love the user interface on the tool there that you showed. I will make sure that I share that link there with the audience as well. We do have some questions here for you from the audience. But while I do that, I'm going to pop up this poll question that's on the screen. It says, what additional information would you like about the Rapid7 solution? Sam, you ready for some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see here. First question, Frank is asking, how long does it take a new threat to be fully seen by your system?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So to answer that, we update our database daily with new vulnerabilities. We are part of the Cyber Threat Alliance. We have a board seat. So not only does that help us contribute to that, we are a CVSS numbering authority. But one thing that's unique about us, so direct answer your question, daily to the database. Other interesting point, we have a project called Project Heisenberg, and I thought it was a Breaking Bad reference, but apparently it's an engineer's name. But we have honeypots deployed globally that allows us to see trends, patterns, what's being seen in the wild. And we actually have a threat feed card that can show you what we're seeing out in the wild that's being exploited, what vulnerabilities are readily attacked, and then ultimately tying that back to information of assets that have that within your environment.
Nice, nice. Okay. Another question here. Chris is asking, how long is the onboarding process? Basically, how long does it take to get started with the tool there that you showed with Insight VM?
Very quickly. So it's all dependent on where you would like the Security Console to reside. We actually have the Security Console in, let's say, for example, the Azure or AWS Marketplace. We have an OVA for it. So once you have it deployed, then you have it paired to the Insight platform, which takes roughly about 10 minutes. At that point, you are ready to start scanning. However, if you want to deploy additional scan engines, that may take a little bit more time than the initial stand-up period, but we also have deployment services, so if you're a large organization, we can very readily meet your needs and make sure that your time to value is shortened in that aspect.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. Another question here. Can you explain the type of reporting that's available with Insight VM?
Absolutely. So we have a wide range of different reports, ranging from, let's say, for example, executive reports that can be tailored, policy reports, different ranges of vulnerability remediation reports, as well as PCI reporting, audit reporting. And we just released a new report in the Insight platform itself that will give you a holistic view of your environment from a new executive reporting standpoint. And if you have questions and want to see a deep dive, just simply look for help.rapid7.com, select Insight VM, and we have very good documentation with screenshots of those various reports.
Okay, nice. Another question here, Cesar is asking, is this only in the cloud or does it also work on-prem?
Absolutely, it works on-prem. So if you wanted to deploy the Security Console on-prem, by all means, you can do so. You can also deploy in the cloud. So it's kind of a hybrid model. It's just really a question of where that Security Console is going to reside.
Okay. Another question, James is asking, can you tell us a little bit more about the agents? What agents are needed?
Absolutely. So our agent, it's very lightweight. Now, I know you hear that from anybody else under the sun that sells or leverages an agent. So the agent is part of our solution. You don't pay extra to leverage the agent. The agent is more of a collector. So what it does is it can be installed on Linux, Mac, or Windows operating system. So if you're running Windows XP or Windows Server 2008, the same Windows agent's leveraged. The same Linux agent is leveraged for those different flavors of Linux, and same thing for Mac. Once that agent is deployed, what it will do is it will create basically an assessment of what is the installed software, what's the operating system. It will then encrypt that information and send it 443 outbound to the Insight platform, and there is where the actual assessment takes place to understand what vulnerabilities are associated with it, and that's why it's lightweight, because the heavy lifting, the assessment piece, is done in the Insight platform.
Nice, nice. Last question I think I have, and that is, what should people do to get started? Is there a demo, a trial? I mean, what do you recommend?
It's really, I prefer going the demo route and reaching out to us via that link that was provided, because ultimately we want to understand and tailor not just the demo, but if you're interested in the proof of concept, making sure that we're mapping to your organization's unique success criteria, making sure we understand what pain points you have and what we can do to help alleviate them, and ultimately tying the solution to the business context that is desired and what integrations may be required. So I always like to have an SE involved through those processes, just so you can have that conversation.
Okay. I'm going to post that link, in fact, right now in the chat for everyone to check out. It's rapid7.com/try/InsightVM. There we go. I just posted that. Adil is asking, can we automate the agent install through something like Ansible?
I know that we have there's mass deployment options that are available. I'm not sure about Ansible off the top of my head. I believe I've seen that done, but I've seen mass deployments done with group policies, batch files. So if there's a will, there's a way. We can obviously find a way to make that work.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Sam, I think that's all the time we have. Really great demo. Thank you so much for being on the event today.
It was really a pleasure, and thank all of you for joining, and I hope you all have a great and safe weekend.
For more information on Rapid7, of course, visit their website, rapid7.com. Click on that link I just posted there in the questions box where you can try the Rapid7 solution for yourself. Also in the handouts tab there, you'll find a product brief on live vulnerability assessment and endpoint analytics from Rapid7, so make sure that you download that. And now it is time for our final prize announcement. We have an Amazon $500 gift card going to Chris Hippensteel from Wisconsin. And then we have an iPad for Matt Hall from Kentucky, Scott Chasteen from Indiana, and Andrew Coleman from Oregon. Congratulations to all the prize winners. I will post the prize winners from today in the chat window right now. But before we go, I want to remind everyone just a couple things here. Make sure that you subscribe to the 10 on Tech podcast over in the iTunes store for the latest in enterprise technology interviews. If you'd like to present on a future MegaCast or EcoCast event, connect with us at connect@actualtechmedia.com. And make sure that you join us for our next event, which is next week, next Wednesday, if you're in healthcare especially. This is a healthcare in IT EcoCast, solutions for healthcare data centers and technologists with a number of different sponsors, all focusing in on healthcare solutions in IT. And we'll have an excellent keynote speaker, Mr. Keith Townsend, who is the CEO of the CTO Advisor. Really insightful interview coming on that event, the Healthcare EcoCast, next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the Security MegaCast today. I hope that you learned a lot, and have a great day. Bye-bye.